As the world's attention turns once again to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, contradictions could not be more stark. On the ground, the war is intensifying. On the world stage, the leaders are promising peace.
Mr. Fischer, we've been familiar with Viktor Orban's position for years. This is also not his first trip to Moscow. He already made a trip to Moscow in July last year, immediately after taking over the presidency of the European Council. That visit back then was not only unsuccessful. Just a few days after that visit, there were some of the heaviest attacks by the Russian army, including against civilian infrastructure and civilian targets in Ukraine. I hope that this time Russia will not respond in the same way.
Over the weekend, Russia announced fresh territorial gains in Pokrovsk, a strategically important city in Ukraine's Donetsk region. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, troops pushed further into the eastern and northwestern sectors, claiming to have repelled at least 10 Ukrainian breakout attempts. Drone footage released by Moscow shows precision strikes on armored vehicles, fuel depots, and Ukrainian military positions across 143 locations, from Sumy to Kharkiv. Meanwhile, Russia says its air defense systems shot down 230 Ukrainian drones in just 24 hours, underscoring how drone warfare now dominates the battlefield. But Ukraine tells a different story. Kyiv's military reports 271 battles along the front lines in a single day, claiming its forces held back Russian offensives across multiple directions. Ukrainian missile and artillery units say they targeted several Russian troop concentrations and destroyed 2 artillery systems. President Vladimir Zelenskyy revealed staggering numbers.
Dear Ukrainians, both men and women, work is still ongoing after last night's strike by Russian missiles and drones. With a large-scale attack, the main target was our energy sector. Here, Russia hasn't changed its tactics and is still trying to inflict this kind of pain on Ukraine before winter. It's important that we are fighting back. It's important that we are shooting them down. 19 missiles were shot down, including ballistic ones. Almost 560 drones were also neutralized, among them about 300 Shaheds. Unfortunately, not everything was shot down, and we need to work for a stronger air defense. This is priority number 1. This task is extremely difficult, extremely costly for Ukraine and our partners. No country could handle this alone, but we are providing Ukraine with air defense missiles and constantly expanding our fleet of various air defense systems. We are preparing to work with our partners next week, including to further improve the quality of our air defense. We are counting heavily on our partners' support. This evening, U.S. time, the Ukrainian delegation should already be in the United States of America, and the dialogue, based on the points from Geneva, will continue. Diplomacy remains active. The American side is showing a constructive approach, and it is quite realistic that in the coming days, we can finalize the steps needed to determine how to end the war with dignity. The Ukrainian delegation has the necessary directives, and I expect the team to work according to clear Ukrainian priorities. Today, I also had meetings with Kirilo Budanov, as well as with Denis Shmyhal, Mikhaila Fedorov, and Pavlo Polisa. Each of these meetings was about different aspects of our internal resilience, and of course, about the strength we have that can help facilitate the right negotiations. I spoke with the Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Ruslan Stefanchuk, representatives of the majority faction, and with the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Yulia Sviridenko. I expect that the Parliament of Ukraine will remain functional. There is already a candidate for Minister of Justice. A clear vision is also needed regarding the head of the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. A strong person is needed. I asked the parliamentarians, together with the Prime Minister, to determine a list of candidates. One more thing. There will be new sanctions decisions from us to further increase the pressure on Russia for this war, in line with our partners. In our sanctions, which we will implement essentially together with our partners, so that the world puts pressure on the aggressor, exactly as needed to weaken Russia's ability to wage war. The decrees will be issued tomorrow. Our proposed sanctions will be sent to all strong partner jurisdictions. Thank you to everyone who's helping. Thank you to everyone who's defending Ukraine.
And yet, even as Russia advances militarily, it continues to shape a very different narrative abroad. On the diplomatic stage, President Vladimir Putin and Russian officials speak of stability, peace, and security.
As to a draft agreement, there has been no draft. There was a set of issues, a list of issues to be discussed and to be deliberated and worked out. As I've already said, before my visit to Alaska, we discussed this with the United States and negotiating team. And after that, the list of possible items for an agreement was drafted, and it was conveyed to us through certain channels. Then there were talks in Geneva between the United States and the Ukrainian delegation. As I understand, they decided between themselves that these 28 items should be divided into 4 groups. And we received the outcomes of those discussions. In general, we agree that this may become the basis for a future agreement. It would not be proper for me to make any final statements right now because there is no finalized material so far. And many of the things are very general in character at this point, but we see that the United States are considering our interests, including those that were voiced before the discussions in Anchorage. Some of the items will have to be discussed in very specific terms, have to frame things diplomatically. One thing to say that Russia is not going to attack Europe, which is really laughable for us as an idea. Of course, we could write that down as this is, but sometimes people are a bit, maybe they're a bit out of their minds, or maybe they're just trying to create some kind of an illusion for their populations. They say that Russia is preparing to attack and they need to strengthen their defense industry. Maybe they're just catering to the defense companies. Maybe they're trying to prop up their domestic political ratings, the lamentable state of their economies. But in our eyes, of course, it's just nonsense, complete lies. But if those ideas are so hyped up in the Western public consciousness, if we truly need to make a statement that we don't have any aggressive plans, then we'd be willing to do this. Maybe there is a meaning in that. If we want to sit down all together and to have a discussion. And of course, there is a desire to go back to discussing these issues.
The contrast is becoming increasingly undeniable. As Russian troops move deeper into Ukrainian territory, Moscow continues to position itself as a responsible global power seeking peace, while simultaneously escalating the conflict.
The way Europe is behaving so brazenly, demanding some kind of place for itself at the negotiations? Do they even have any grounds to demand anything in this regard?
Well, this was hardly discussed at all. We proceed from the fact, and representatives of the administration, including Yuri Viktorovich Ushakov, have spoken about this. And, in my opinion, it's obvious to everyone that Europe has already removed itself from the negotiations. Europe failed. The original agreement on settlement from February 2014, when it guaranteed the settlement agreement between Yanukovych and the opposition, it simply failed it and did nothing when the opposition, the morning after the document was signed, took over all government institutions. Europe failed in exactly the same way with the Minsk agreements, when Merkel and Hollande, the signatories, later admitted that no one ever intended to fulfill them. And of course, the most recent time was in April 2022, when, at the request of Boris Johnson, and with the complete lack of resistance, if not outright agreement, from Europe, the Istanbul agreements collapsed. So Europe, how should I put it, well, basically didn't make use of any of its chances.